Tree Country 1330 WTRE 730 on this Thursday. Good morning, Mayor Marsh.
Hey, good morning, Emily, and happy Thursday, everyone out there in WTRE country.
That's right. It's not quite as light. We don't have sun yet today. I had some sun yesterday morning.
I know, and we're going to brace for the cold that's coming over the weekend. We'll probably get to that at the end of our show because we've got a special guest with us today.
All right, we're going to go ahead. There we go. We've got Jennifer Meltzer with us this morning. Can you hear us?
I can. Good morning.
Good morning. You're actually traveling to Indy this morning, correct?
I am. I'm supposed to be in the State House in less than a half an hour for committee, so on my way there.
Well, Representative Meltzer, we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us this morning. And as always, I want to be the first to thank you for the good work that you and all your colleagues are doing. I know sometimes it's a thankless job, and sometimes you and I have robust conversations, but always enjoy the conversation. And thanks for taking time to share what you're working on to the legislative session today with the folks here in Greensburg. And then before we let you go, we'll be sure we get a plug in for the Chamber of Commerce legislative update that's coming in February. But we'll turn it over to you for a minute. Just tell us a little bit about what you're working on. Exceptionally abbreviated session this year, and what else is going on at the State House.
Yeah, we are an incredibly fast-paced short session. Normally, short session would last through about mid to late March, and this year we are planning on ending on February 27th. The reason being that we went into session in December to consider redistricting, which eventually died in the Senate. So took those couple of weeks off the back end, and we have an incredibly short session, which means that there's less committee meetings, less bills will probably move. I filed several bills this year. 3 of them got a hearing, 1 did not. So I'm still working on that language and seeing if it can go in somewhere else, but just because of the time crunch, I think it just didn't have time to move. And that one had to do with food labeling and listing foods when they had ingredients that and contained ingredients that are not approved for human consumption in other countries. So I'm hoping to still get that language into another bill, or at least get talking about it with other people, just because I think it's incredibly important to recognize what's in our food. Not saying you can't eat it, just give you the information about what's in it. The 3 that are moving, 1 is cleanup for resisting law enforcement from last year. 1 has to do with municipal elections and allowing any municipality to move their elections to even-numbered years if they want to. It's a may. It's completely left up to local units of government to make that decision. I think that decision should be made locally, not at the state level. But I do think that option needs to be available to more municipalities. Currently, it's only available to municipalities with a population of less than 3,500 people, which is not very many. And then the other bill that I have that's moving has to do with the Recorder's Office and Public Records. So 3 not huge changes to the Indiana Code, but minor changes that should be helpful to local units of government and protecting our police officers.
It's always interesting when you share with what you're working on at a legislative level, because I think you're one of those members of the legislative body that actually look for the really interesting things to help kind of fix and tweak. I don't ever seem like you have a bunch of passion, specifically to you bills. How do you come up with like the food bill? I think that one's fascinating, right? We are seeing this change at the national level with the Kennedy, administration component focused on removing, and Emily's in healthcare. That's important to her as well. But what's in food that, in what countries are we comparing it to?
So we're comparing it to your other world, kind of first world countries. So you're comparing it to, think the UK, your EU countries, Australia, Canada, Japan is in there. And so really just kind of walking through like what those ingredients are. And I was incredibly fortunate to be able to go to Japan through our student exchange program, not this past summer, but in 2024 with my daughter. And one of the friends I made over there sent us home with a bag of Cheetos from Japan. And then we have friends that visited Mexico, and they brought home Cheetos from Mexico. And so we did a fun international, like, let's try everyone's different Cheetos, put them in brown paper bags with a bunch of our friends, and we all decided which one we liked the best. And it was interesting who liked what, but the most interesting part to me was after about 6 to 10 hours overnight, you looked at the bags, and the brown paper bag from the American Cheetos was incredibly greasy. It looked dirty. And the one from Japan was not. And the one from Mexico was not. And so that made me start kind of questioning, what is it that we're eating that other countries are not? And when you start looking into it, it's a lot of preservatives and chemicals. And I'm not an expert in this. I don't know what that does for our health, but Texas passed the bill that said, look, like, we should know what we're eating. And that made sense to me. So that was why I filed that bill.
I'm going to tag onto that too. Recently, this for the SNAP benefits, those requirements or what you're able to purchase with that has changed. Have you had much feedback from your constituents regarding that?
I have not. I think that most people are starting to recognize that, eating fruits and vegetables really is good for us. And I mean, that's what I try to feed my children as much as possible. I'm not saying that we're perfect. They definitely probably have a bag of chips in their lunch today. But I mean, just recognizing that to the extent that we can be eating fruits and vegetables and fresh foods is good for us. And I think it also is, when it's good for our health, it benefits Medicaid and it benefits the expenses of the state that we have for paying for healthcare. And so it's all linked together, and the more information people can have, the better. I want them to be able to make their own decisions. I don't want to tell them what to do, just want them to get information.
So switching gears a little bit, you are obviously an attorney in Shelbyville, now in private practice, but years in municipal practice as well. Your husband's a judge. Both of you are serving the law enforcement community in different ways. What's the story behind cleaning up? Because I think that's a term we often hear for short sessions, right? Cleaning up bills is what we're supposed to be doing. The long sessions are the budget years and maybe supposed to be creating legislation. What's the cleanup language helping local law enforcement, and I assume local law enforcement, be better at?
Yeah, so last year we passed 2 bills that that affected the resisting law enforcement statute. One of those bills basically added back in school resource officers as someone who you could have a resisting charge from. And then the other one was it increased the penalties for resisting law enforcement in certain situations where moderate bodily harm happens than serious bodily harm. So think of those situations where the person fleeing in a vehicle actually then hits a pedestrian or hits the police car and causes bodily harm. So that's what we did last year. Unfortunately, when we did that, when we passed them in 2 different bills, there's a rule of lenity. And the rule of lenity says the higher penalties actually cannot take effect. So although there are 2 versions of the code in Indiana Code right now, if you were to open it up and go to Title 35, you'd see both versions. Only one of those can actually be charged by prosecutors. So what the bill does is take both of those policies from last year and basically reenact them into one bill so that the higher penalties can take effect.
And then before we move on to maybe what you're working on in committee and what else you'd like to see, obviously impact to local governments. You were talking about the municipal elections. We're in those odd years. We're always in an off year, which I personally believe is great because it allows us to talk about hyper-focused local issues that are working in communities that we're most invested in, right? When it's mayors and clerk treasurers and city councils that are leading the tickets. I understand that it does have a lower voter turnout, but it is really an opportunity to express, what's being impacted at the local level, not getting buried under, the president, United States senator and representatives and House members and state senators. So appreciate your work to make that as flexible as possible. It seems that one of the things that maybe the governor and even the General Assembly is trying to consolidate more of this kind of authority at the state level, between House Bill 1001, which is a House priority bill, but it's also removing local control over building codes and administrations. What's your kind of pulse on the session this year? We've heard the governor support that in the state of the state. We've heard him talking about, changes that are coming in other state agencies. What's kind of the pulse after the redistricting fight in December? The governor's been in place for a year now. How's the state house what's the temper?
So I think I heard someone describe it as more calm and more, there's not as much of excitement. I think bringing everyone back in December took some of the air out of the balloon, for the lack of a better way to describe it. But overall, I mean, everyone's working well together. There's compromises happening on the major bills like they always do. Everyone is working through amendments and changes. I've been in conversations with many of my colleagues about their bills, just making suggestions and ways to make them better. And so, in a lot of ways, it's like any other short session, just trying to do some cleanup, trying to catch things that can be fixed for July 1 when everything takes effect.
All right. Well, I know you're going to be in session soon. Anything you want to add before we wrap up with you and let you get your day started?
No, I just look forward to talking to everyone at the legislative update with the chamber.
All right, that'll be February 20th.
Yep, February 20th. It's at City Hall, 11:30 to 1. It's a Friday. This is year number 2 or 3, I think, of having it during the week. That accommodates everyone's schedule a little bit better. Folks can come over on their lunch break. The chamber does a great job. Jenny, we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us this morning. I know it's kind of short, but you've got judiciary this morning, if I remember correctly, and you're headed in to take a look at some other bills. Can you, real quick before we let you go, can you sort of talk about where we are in session, right? We're coming up to the halfway point. There's a timeline for bills that have got to get through committee and change houses.
Yeah, so a lot of committees will wrap up this week or Monday and Tuesday of next week, and then we hit second reading deadline, which means if your bill has not made it out of committee on the second, it is dead for this year. And then we will switch over and we'll start looking at Senate bills after we get through third reading deadline in February.
And then that's also important because you've got to get language out of one house in order for it to be put back together in conference committee, correct?
Generally speaking.
Yeah. Well, we can always rip and strip, right? It's a tough battle, but we appreciate it and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Mm-hmm. You too. Bye.
All right. Nice to have a little guest on with us.
Yeah, we appreciate. I appreciate what Representative Meltzer does, and I jokingly said, sometimes we have robust conversation, but we really do, and she's always really willing to help and listen and be a part of the conversation, and it's one of those things where I may not agree with her vote or, don't really maybe fully understand why something's happening like that. And I'm sure she doesn't agree with my opinion, and that's okay. But she's always willing to listen, and we have great conversations about what's happening at the General Assembly. And that's true. Representative Zimmerman and I were in law school together, and I know he represents a small portion of southern Decatur County. I've gotten to know Representative Patterson a lot better. And, of course, Senator Lysing's been around for a long time. And I know you had her on Tuesday morning.
I did, yes.
And, they're all very willing to listen, engage, be a part of the conversation. And, just because somebody has an opinion or is screaming the loudest doesn't mean that's the one that needs to be heard. I always take it, hey, share your thoughts. And if that's not the way it works, there's opportunities for that later. But appreciate the work that she does for sure.
This session is just going so fast, which I think everyone knew that it would, being a short session and starting early, but it just seems like it has flown by.
It's interesting to hear her perspective of that. Obviously, she's in it every day. The small amount of time that I've spent at the State House this session, it seems like it's a madhouse, and everyone is running around rampantly. But, maybe it's that whole thing about a duck on top of water. So you never know.
That's right. All right. Well, let's city-wise, anything new going on this week?
Yeah. Actually, big news this morning that's probably in your email box.
It is, yes.
From this morning is we kind of hinted at this last week, and we've got all the pieces in place with the Decatur County Solid Waste Board, which oversees Decatur County Recycling. So those two are interchangeable, but the real group is the Decatur County Solid Waste District. And that board's made up of the commissioners, county council member, myself, city council member, and a small towns representative. So that board and the city of Greensburg have agreed to a 10-year lease for our old street department. It's been a widely asked question, and we're finally answering these questions that Sandy was on me for 2 years about, like, what are we doing with the fire station? We've got that sold. What are we doing with the street department? We've got that leased out now with solid waste, and they're going to open and it was also announced it's going to be named the Norma Bainbridge Recycling Center over at the old street department, and that facility will come online here in 26 as a permanent open hours, standing hours recycling community center. It will the intention is to take place of Toxaway Days. Now, whether we do Toxaway Days this year or not, TBD. But like, we won't take tires, but we'll take about everything else. And then curbside recycling inside the city of Greensburg and at those satellite stations are going to remain in place. But and we actually have a new 3-year contract. Solid Waste has a new 3-year contract with Rumpke to provide those services in the city. So that is going to remain the same. This is going to be in addition to that. So it's an added service. So our agreement with Solid Waste includes a upfront payment that the city council has directed to be put towards the Decatur County Pool Project. So we're partnering, and I think that's an incredibly important term. We have a facility that's underutilized, and Solid Waste wants to open a center. They have a capital stack that allows them to do this, where they're going to fund the rent in advance. So it's $1 million towards the Decatur County Community Pool Project. And the City of Greensburg Council was incredibly excited to partner with the Decatur County Solid Waste Organization to work out a deal that helps get a center open. It helps the building that we are going to continue to own be maintained and managed at no expense to the city. Solid Waste is going to do all of that. And then we also get to continue to own the property for future uses or expansion needs. And then also $1 million gets to put towards the pool. So it's a win-win-win situation, which is kind of rare, but exceptionally exciting to see.
It is, but it is exciting. And, you know, there's been a lot of discussion about the pool for the last couple of years, and to see it starting to come together now, but then also in turn, you're using a building that otherwise was not being well used. So good for our community all the way around.
Yeah, and this is this has been something, and the reason it's the Norma Bainbridge Center, she was the director for recycling for 20 plus years, had a real passion and desire to see a permanent center, and so with the naming of the recycling center itself, then we're helping bring that mission to fruition. And the investment by Solid Waste in, hey, we're upfronting the money, we're supporting another community project and process, and then the city being willing to partner with that, have an asset that we get to continue to own and maintain, which is important for us because it is land that we own south of the railroad tracks. It does back up to our police station if we need an expansion in the future. The agreement is very fair to both parties if the future changes, and I'm so excited to see everyone pulling in the same direction for such a great community project. So I believe that takes the pool project, and I give tons and tons of credit, and I did this last week to Commissioner Nobby, Gabe Nobby, for working very diligently to help raise the funds and put the capital stack together. So I think they're 3.5 plus the match component at the foundation, which I think he said on Tuesday was at $50,000. And, there's $250,000 left out there. So
they've done a great job, though, getting those funds ready to go and bringing something back. It's important for the kids in the community to have, another resource, as well as the visitors that come in, being out there by the ball diamonds. So, and
there's work being done. They're moving, which is great. They're going to try to. Their intention is to get it open this summer.
That's what I thought. Yeah, we'll be excited.
Spring, summer. So I'm sure it'll be a big deal when it is, and it should be, and it should be widely celebrated.
All right. No meetings this week, right?
No, nothing this week. It's been a quiet night or quiet week on the meeting front. I did have a really interesting conversation yesterday with Don Wettrick, which is from the Started Up Foundation. That probably means nothing to everybody out there, but it is an interesting piece of this education conversation. So Superintendent Burns and Hunter, and then the principal, Mark Myers from Greensburg High School came, and Angel Hawker from the county school, director of curriculum, Don Lowe from the chamber, Brian Robbins, EDC, myself. We all met with him to sort of talk about this innovative mentality that needs to be happening in education, and how do we sort of take problems and see them as ideas, and then ideas into concepts. And it's no cost to the school system, and they work to generate this entrepreneurial spirit, this problem-solving mentality that we need in our society for all kinds of things, not just the workforce, but for all kinds of pieces and parts. And had a really great conversation about that. So it's one of those things. don't spend a ton of time working in the education space, but I've heard him speak at a couple different events that I was at, and I thought, this is something that really could benefit all of Decatur County, and I was appreciative of both superintendents and their teams bringing and spending time to come and meet with him and listen, and always go back to, we've got a great community support network out there. When somebody calls, you can get a lot of great people at the table on relatively quick and short notice, to have an open mind. And if, again, I don't spend much time in the education space, so they must have thought, well, dang, if he's sending us something, must be something that is worth looking at, and I appreciate them taking the time to do that.
Very good. And education, that's such a vital piece in the community for the kids, but also people looking to relocate or looking at a new place to set up their family. That plays a big piece in that for people.
Yeah, and I mean, we're all the time talking about economic development and what's happening, and of course hospitals and schools, quality of life are all things that people are very, very interested in. Never once have I been asked what our tax rate is, but I have been asked how are the schools. Countless times I've been asked, what's the access to insert amenity here, and it definitely plays a role in what people look for, especially when they choose. If you look at, everyone always talks about, well, Carmel Schools has all of this, or, all of these big schools have all, and their tax rate and their tax rate. Yeah, but like people are moving there because they want access to that school system, right? And it definitely drives it. And everybody's got a unique, great FFA program or great manufacturing program or great biology program. So it's always interesting to see, what those topics are. But when we start talking about students being innovators and entrepreneurs and problem solvers, that is transferable to anything post high school.
That's right. Well, as we move into the weekend, have you seen the snowstorm that could potentially impact us? I'm still sticking to potentially.
Yeah.
It's way far out there.
I heard this morning when they were talking about it that it has made landfall in California. That's what they said. Like it was like a hurricane coming for us. But the impacts are to be determined. I also love seeing all of the posts online about, well, it could be 0 to 45 inches, and it might be sometime between now and the end of society, and anything and maybe never, right? Like it is kind of fascinating. This is a 12 loaf bread ban. This is the 5 loaf of bread ban. So we will wait and see. Our teams, and again, interestingly, I received an email because, as you might imagine, we consume a lot of natural gas, especially at our wastewater plant, that the natural gas pipe, the natural gas supply, distribution network may be impacted because of all of the ice, right?
Oh, okay.
Ice is a huge impact, obviously, for electrical and pumps and everything. Not that that's impacting us, but if you look at the ice band all the way across North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, that's a lot of acres if that much ice does actually exist. So for the first time in my career, I received an email from the natural gas supply network that said, be aware, natural gas may be interrupted, and or if you have a change in demand, please notify us immediately. Like if you're going to consume extra natural gas, please let us know, because it's also this very extended length of cold in between electrical demands and natural gas demands, and obviously water is hard to deal with in the cold. But our team is ready to go. They're aware. Everybody, we just talked about this in our department head meeting yesterday. Everybody's attentive to it. Crews are on standby for as needed. May not be perfect. May be perfect. May just be a wet weekend in Decatur County. Don't know.
We don't know.
We'll wait and see. But one thing that I do think I always want to try to stress and remind everyone of is we have 12 or 13 people on our street department team. We have 10, 12 snowplows. And you cannot run a person 24 hours. You cannot run 2 full shifts for 24 hours. You can just do what you can do. We have to do it safely. We have to do it legally. We have to take care of our teammates, and so that they can help us. With that being said, it may not be when the first snowfall falls, you see a snowplow truck. It may be multiple hours, because it's really about timing it to where we would much rather us get like 8 inches of snow in 5 hours. Just snow, and then stop, and then we could get it out of the way. It's when we are having potentially 20 to 24 hours of consistent snowfall, that we're going to be fighting a very big uphill battle.
And I think blowing is in a potential as well. So that also does not help anything for you guys.
It does not help us. That actually impacts the Decatur County Highway Department a little bit more than it does us. We don't have as much of the drifting problem as they do out in some of the flat, wide areas of the county, but it still has a negative impact, and especially if it's light and puffy snow. You go through, and if it does blow between two houses, then it's closed off again and whatever. So the other piece of that is, with it going to be so bitterly cold, snowmelt won't work. And so when we're driving on it, and this happened to us earlier when we had, this very kind of big, thick sheet of ice on every road surface, people were driving on it, packed it down, created an ice layer, and when it doesn't get above 30 with full sun, it doesn't go anywhere. And so I think once again we are set up to see maybe the perfect storm, in that we're going to have a very long amount of snow. It's going to be very cold, and it is a weekend, so that helps and hurts. Maybe less people are technically out and about. You don't have to go to work. You don't have to get to work, or as many folks don't. Schools aren't in, but there's also a lot of people out and about, going to the grocery store, doing the stuff, and we just have to be careful of that. Decatur County Emergency Management Facebook group, Mike Snyder does a great job of getting that updated. Our friends in the media here at WTRE help us with that. I think the Decatur County Health Department is working towards figuring out what the warming shelter situation looks like.
Sean was on yesterday, and I think their intention right now is to open Friday night.
Okay, so keep an eye out on their social media platforms, again, here, to be alerted to what that looks like. It will probably, I would assume, be at the Decatur County Health Department or the Decatur County Annex building on South Ireland Street. So just those are the two agencies that really help drive that. When we get into travel advisories, this is one that always sort of freaks people out. Yellow and orange and red. That is a county-wide declaration. It's made by the commissioners. We do have a small working group that we all get together. It's myself, the street commissioner, Mark Clustercamper, Fire Chief Nathan Sturmer, Police Chief Mike McNeely, Sheriff Bill Myros, the three commissioners, and EMA all get together virtually and sort of talk through where we are. And then Decatur County Highway, so Todd Houck and Tim Ortman get together and sort of give the on-the-ground assessment of what we're seeing, both in city and out of city and timelines. So they're the ones that end up making that decision as we proceed through it. I wouldn't be surprised to see yellow come, relatively early, just based on the amount. It does have some effect, but it really doesn't have any effect until it turns bright red. And so just be aware of that, be attentive. There is not really a way to predict it, and it is really almost slightly reactionary, and that's just the nature of the beast, and we just have to stay in those confines. It is county-wide, so we can't do something different than that in the city, and we try to be partners when we can on making sure that everybody's got that information. So Decatur County Emergency Management, Facebook's the one to trust, the trusted verified source for that and updates, and then the Decatur County Health Department's the one who manages and runs the warming shelter component. So take a look at that, and check on your friends and neighbors. I greatly appreciate all the work that all the crews do, not just ours and not just public safety, but everybody driving snow plows and making sure that the water pumps keep running. And heaven forbid we have some issue on the water distribution system when it's 0 degrees. Wastewater teams show up overnight throughout the nights to help, and we've been known to have people stay over just to make sure that Sunday morning when it's snowing and very deep, that they can get in and help repair and keep our systems online. And the electrical crews, the gas crews, everybody that's involved with it.
And it impacts all of those things greatly, no matter how you look at it. So.
And almost nothing can, and I know this sounds really, really weird to say, but almost nothing can be done to proactively deal with this. You just have to be ready to be reactive. And sometimes that's kind of frustrating, but that's where we're at.
I want to be a weatherman right now because you could go with any forecast and be right or wrong. I mean, you might be the guy that like really hits it on the head, but then you might be the one that, it shifted and they were wrong.
I don't know that they give out an award for that. They should.
They
should
should.
give out an award for
Yeah.
like the most exactly accurate forecast.
Because I saw 3 very different maps early this morning that could put us anywhere. So, we'll see what happens.
That's right.
Construction's continued. I know Zaxby's looks like it's really close, maybe.
I don't know why they haven't opened, but I don't own the Zaxby's, so I would think that they should be open anytime. Maybe they're going to try to open on Saturday right in the middle of the snowstorm. I don't know. But it does look like it's done, but they've still been out there working on it every now and then. And for lack of better terms, I think about everything else is sort of on pause. Dollar General planted some landscaping some weeks ago, which I thought was odd. But they're getting ready to go, I guess. And, Liberty Lakes is still building houses, and we're getting ready. We are in the process of creating and crafting the state of the city. So that will be delivered mid-February. We'll do it at Rotary, and then we'll do it all week and update it on all that fun stuff.
All right, very good. We do want to remind everyone that legislative update, again, February 20th. That'll be at City Hall. Does it start at 11:30?
11:30 to 1. It's a free and open event. Come on in. And all 4 legislators, Zimmerman, Patterson, Meltzer, and Leising, have confirmed that they're coming, at least at this time. And be a good opportunity to come in and hear from them. They usually give an update and then have some time for Q&A.
It's always like, if you've never been, it's a really neat thing to go to. It gives you a good opportunity to learn quite a bit. So
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you next Thursday.
Sounds like a plan. Everyone have a great week. Stay warm. Check on your neighbors, friends, pets, and we'll see you next Thursday.